StabtheDragon here, whiskey review number 7. What we have tonight is Oak&Eden, Rye&Spire. Oak&Eden. This is another Texas whiskey. I'm going to say Fort Worth, even though it's not exactly Fort Worth. It's close. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. Oak&Eden whiskeys are a product of Sanctified Spirits in Lewisville, Texas. But their headquarters, or flagship as they call it on their website, is in Bridgeport, Texas. Now, Bridgeport is northwest of Fort Worth, going out the Jacksboro Highway, about 50 miles from my home. And then Lewisville is probably about 35 miles, maybe 40 at the most, in the other direction. So, like I said, it's not exactly a Fort Worth whiskey, but when you split the difference between Lewisville and Bridgeport, you end up here in Fort Worth. So I'm claiming it as close enough to Fort Worth. So what I'm doing with my whiskey reviews, for the most part, is I'm going through whiskeys here in the Fort Worth area. Really, maybe DFW you could call it, but I'm not really doing any Dallas whiskeys that I know of. But so this is, and I've done a couple of other whiskeys that are not Fort Worth. I did Hooten and Young not long ago, and that's certainly not a Texas whiskey. But Bridgeport, Texas is where the tasting room is and the bar, and they've got very nice pictures on the website, but I have not been there. I just don't get out much. And the Lewisville site apparently is probably where they bottle the whiskey and ship from. They don't have a distillery yet that I know of. We'll talk about how they put this stuff together here in a little bit. But the company was formed in April of 2017, and their first product was released in May of 2018. So they're 3.5 years old, basically, as far as their released product goes. Now, for craft whiskey, that's fast. So how did they do that? The company was formed by Joe and Jamie Gildenzopf and Brad Nethery with an idea for providing a finished whiskey that was inspired. I don't know if you can see this or not, but there is a chunk of wood in there called Aspire. Now, they source this whiskey mainly from MGP. There are some other distilleries involved, but they don't list those. But they do clearly state MGP is the source for most of it. So it's aged in Indiana, not Texas. Some people source it in Indiana and then bring it to Texas to age. But on their website, or something that I read, maybe it was an interview, they came out and said the harsh climate in Texas is not what they were looking for. Okay, that harsh climate here, when it ages the whiskeys, man, you get some wild and different stuff in Texas whiskeys, and they didn't want that. So they have a different thing that they're doing here, and that is they cut a 5-inch spiral piece of wood. It can be maple, French oak, cherry, or ash. That wood has been toasted, and then they place it inside the bottle so that the whiskey is actually finished in the bottle. Now, some call it a gimmick, others call it genius. In a Forbes article that I read about this whiskey, they did a genuine taste test with the whiskeys before and after the Spire. And so they compared the tasting notes, the nosing, the visual appearance of all that. And guess what? The Spire actually works as advertised. In other words, the whiskeys that they put together were the same mash bill, same whiskey, but just no Spire. And that comes across as a lighter whiskey, not quite as much flavor. And then you put the Spire in it, and the whiskey gets a little bit darker. The flavor gets more rich. So the Spire is inspiring. And so that's why they call this Rye&Spire. This is one of their, I don't know if you can even see see that charred oak is the flavor of the Spire, and then Rye&Spire is the type of whiskey. So this is one of their core whiskeys. They have several, and due to the name of the company that puts this out, Sanctified Spirits, and the wording on the website for several things, I feel safe in saying that this whiskey company is made by Christians, or run and owned by Christians. And that may sound weird to some people and probably offensive to others, but I am just reporting what I see here. Furthermore, I personally identify as a Christian and therefore rejoice with this company having the guts to do what they're doing, and I wish them the very best. Drinking whiskey or making it, I think, is a morally neutral thing. I didn't always think that. I mean, I come from a pretty raw fundamentalist Baptist background, and I'm still very conservative Baptist, but Reformed. But I think that consuming alcohol or making it is a morally neutral thing. It's what you do with it that really matters. And so drunkenness is very clearly prohibited in the Bible and described as sinful. But at the actual consumption of alcohol in moderation is fine. Enjoying the taste of a good whiskey is fine. The clarity of this bottle and of the website is really exemplary of all the whiskeys that I've looked at so far. They probably have the most clarity in so far that I've seen. So even though this is a very new whiskey, I'm going to give them 5 points out of 5 for their history. And that's because of the clarity. Number 2 in my scheme of rating whiskeys is marketing or packaging, and you get 0 to 5 points here. I really don't recall seeing any advertising for this whiskey, but online perhaps I do. Some advertisements just go over my head. But I did come to know of it probably through looking at other whiskey shows like Daniel and Rex on the Whiskey Vault, maybe. The bottles are quite noticeable in the liquor store as they are really kind of big and imposing. I mean, look at that. It's a taller version of the bullet bottles, because it's got that flask appearance there. But this is taller for a 750 milliliter bottle. It's quite tall. And I think it's a very nice looking bottle. It's classy. It's got a little bit of the Old West look to it. It's got nice bold letters that are very well done. It describes itself as a finished whiskey. The technical label down at the bottom with all the legal stuff is also quite classy and tells you that it's a charred oak, the Spire's charred oak, and gives you the name of this bottle, Rye&Spire. And then some fiddly bits down at the bottom that say, label batch 0019, bottle number 0315, and it's got the owner's signature, J. Gildenzopf. And, so all of that I think is kind of a classy touch as well, that they label each individual bottle and got a signature there on the bottle. You can't see this when I hold it up, but there's a design. You can vaguely see it right here. Some kind of a weird design going on there. And it's a hand that is pointed down, and then it's got rays around it. So I'm not real sure what that's about. It could be a reference to the hand of God, because on their website they do talk about the Creator. In fact, on the bottle they talk about the Creator, capital C. This whiskey is 45% alcohol by volume, so it's a 90 proof whiskey on the label. And at the very bottom of the bottle, it's embossed Oak&Eden. I guess you can maybe see that Oak&Eden there embossed. And then on the back, all the legal mumbo jumbo, and then some advertising stuff about the company that says, Oak&Eden, the name pays gracious homage to the perfection of the Creator, who breathed his unique spirit into us, and the wood that infuses our other favorite spirit with its complex flavor. and then a lot more marketing verbiage. The bottle has a plain brown plastic cap with a rubber cork. On the back of the bottle is an embossed hand, just like on the front, reaching down with the glory marks around it. So again, I'm not sure if you can, there you go, you might be able to see that. That's pretty good there. So for marketing and packaging, I'm going to give this whiskey a 4 out of 5. Composition, 0 to 15 points possible. One of the things I love about this innovative whiskey is, again, the honesty and openness, the integrity about what they're selling. They do say up front that most, but not all, of their whiskey is MGP. And the mash bill for this Rye&Spire is 95% rye and 5% barley, which is kind of one of the MGP typical rye bills. The website says their whiskeys are aged 3 years in Indiana, not Texas. And again, it's because they want to avoid that harsh Texas climate, how it affects the taste there. That's not the taste they're looking for. But another place I did see something that said they were looking to start doing their own whiskey here in Texas. So I'm not sure. That's the only point of lack of clarity is I've seen 2 different hints now. One is that, hey, they like MGP because of the climate, but another hint that says they may be doing stuff here in Texas soon. So I'm not sure about the future plans of the company. I'll wait and see. So the company does bottle the whiskey here, and again, presumably at the Louisville location. And this is where they put the spire of wood in the bottles. Now, I'm not sure if they make the spires here or if they get the spires elsewhere. I'm not sure. The spire influences the whiskey, they say, for about 6 weeks. And after that, it's just kind of, it's just in there. It doesn't really do anything after 6 weeks. But it does significantly change the whiskey for the better. In the Rye&Spire, we get the charred oak spire, apparently. And again, because of all their honesty about the composition, the actual ingredients, this whiskey gets a 14 out of 15 points. Physical appearance of this whiskey, 0 to 5 points. Some people say they don't really care a hoot about what a whiskey looks like. It's all taste. Well, that's why I only give 5 points for appearance, but I do like a darker whiskey. And this Rye&Spire really is quite dark. It's brown. It's darker than most whiskeys. It's only got medium legs, though. I mean, it's not real oily. I'm going to say medium to light legs, maybe. So I've definitely seen more oily whiskeys. But you can see here in the Glencairn glass how dark that is. That's pretty dark whiskey. I'm not sure why I like darker whiskeys, but I do. I guess I think it's a sign of quality, maybe, even though I know it's not. I mean, I like Cutty Sark as a Scotch, and it's very, very light. But for appearances, I give this whiskey 4 out of 5 points. Now let's talk about nosing, the aroma of this whiskey. 0 to 10 points possible. And sometimes I'm not even sure why I try nosing whiskeys. My nose is so incapable, it's pathetic. I can vaguely smell something, maybe a slight essence of floral, but there's also a little bit of a kind of a rubber smell, like eraser. And it's not unpleasant, but it is different. Okay, it's not real inviting or anything like that, but neither is it off-putting. 7 out of 10 for nosing. Taste, 0 to 25 points. This whiskey is a bit peculiar, but in a pleasant way. It's only mildly sweet, but mainly it has the spice notes of that high rye mash bill. with a touch of that rubber, maybe pencil eraser flavor. In fact, to be totally honest, when I opened this bottle and first tried it, I thought, oh, this is not good. The second dram a few weeks later, it was quite good. And so, again, that may be particular to me, but I've had that experience with several whiskeys where my first taste of a bottle, when I open the bottle, is unpleasant. I don't like it. And in some bottles, I've had to drink about half of it. In some whiskeys, I've actually had to go through 1.5 bottles before I start liking it. So I don't give up easily when it comes to these things. And that's my recommendation to you as well, is if you crack open a whiskey and you don't really like it, man, I'd persevere and try it a couple of different ways, a couple of different times, and see, keep going. But this reminds me a little bit of Bullet Rye. Maybe it's that MGP high rye mash bill. I'm not sure, but there is that rubber kind of a taste and smell. One review that I read said he hated it. It tasted like a tire to him. Okay, I see where he gets that. And some Islay scotches that I've had have had that. And some ryes will kind of have that. So I don't know how to tell anybody, but if you persevere with that, it changes from being a negative thing to being a positive thing. So I'm sitting here tasting this and enjoying the heck out of it. I mean, it's mildly sweet. This is not a real sweet whiskey at all. It's sweet enough to get the job done. The floral notes there are good. So with my extremely unprofessional tasting notes, I do better when I compare one whiskey with another one. So last week I studied Blackland Rye, another Fort Worth product, and that's 80% rye and then 20% triticale. And so that's a very different kind of a rye, but it's very floral. It's got a very unique flavor to it. I think that triticale really alters the rye and makes it much more light and floral. But see, that was like an 83 proof, and this is a 90 proof. So that proof really does something here that the Blackland Rye didn't have. This has a lot more oomph to it. And I like that. I like these higher proofs, and 90 is not high proof in my book. I mean, it's a good, decent proof. The 83 of the Blackland, that was still a very good, nice tasting rye, but it just lacked a little bit of proof, I think. And so this at a 90 proof is actually quite good. So I can't say this one would be a daily drinker for me, but definitely on a rotation. If I'm in a mood for a good rye, I could easily reach for this, but probably not a daily drinker. A daily drinker rye for me would probably be something like George Dickel, maybe. So I'll give this whiskey a 20 out of 25 points for taste. And this ties it with the Blackland Rye as far as taste goes, but they are very different. And so here you've got two different ryes that are very different in proof and flavor, and yet I like them about the same. Now the mouthfeel and finish on this, 0 to 15 points. This whiskey is somewhat creamy with a pleasant burn factor. It shows it's 90 proof. In fact, I think it may punch just a tad bit above 90. There's no unpleasant alcohol or ethanol burn. Okay, this is not an ethanol dose here. This is a pleasant burn, and that's what I look for in a whiskey. If I get an exceptionally smooth whiskey, to me it's lacking a little bit. So this, and that's what the Blackland Rye was missing. The Blackland Rye was very smooth. I mean, it was exceptionally smooth. but it's missing this punch that I like. So the finish is a medium finish. The flavor lingers a little bit longer than the tingling and burning. The flavor kind of does stick with you, so I'm going to say medium to a long finish. And some 90 proofs do just go away. So this is a little bit longer lasting finish, and that's a nice surprise. So you really get the flavor that lingers. I'm going to give this an 11 out of 15 for mouthfeel and finish. Price, value, availability, up to 10 points here. This is October of 2021, and Specs has this whiskey for $40.99, which is where I got mine. Total Wine has it for $39.99, and Goody Goodies has it for $41.99. So for a finished whiskey of this quality from a local craft distillery in Texas, these are fair prices. All three of the liquor stores I frequent stock this whiskey. Goody Goody is the most expensive consistently, but it's also the closest to me. I can get there after work real easily. Total Wine is always the least expensive, but it's also, of course, the furthest away. And Specs actually has 2 stores in my part of town, and so I frequent all 4 of these stores. For price, value, availability, for what you're getting here, I'm going to say 8 out of 10 points because I really like this whiskey. I mean, this is a good tasting rye. Neat or a mixer, 0 to 5 points. As I say every time, I drink my whiskeys neat 98% of the time. I just do not go to bars. I know next to nothing about mixed drinks, and I just prefer to drink neat. I've tried ice cubes, I've tried, whiskey on the rocks, and that just ruins it for me. I see no purpose in doing that. Straight whiskey is the only thing for me. I don't need the extra calories or the sugar of a mixed drink. But hopefully at some point I go to some of these distilleries that I'm reviewing and actually enjoy something that they produce. So as a 90 proof whiskey, I can see this rye going in a cocktail, but I think it's wonderful, just neat for myself. 4 out of 5. Bonus points, up to 5 points. I'll give this 5 out of 5 bonus because, hey, this whiskey is local to me. It's innovative, it's honest, Christian owned, it sounds like, and it's very tasty. Total points, 82 points, which is significantly higher than most of my previous 6 whiskeys, except for the Hooten Young scored higher at 85. So this is second highest out of, I've done 7 whiskeys so far. Letter grade, B+. B+ for this whiskey. Recommend. If you live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and are interested in DFW whiskeys, you must try Oak&Eden. They've got several expressions. I mean, oh man, at least 6 or 7, I think, expressions of this whiskey because they can finish these things pretty quickly with those spires. So I do hope to try a few more. When I finish this bottle, I will probably go for a different bottle next time. Not because I don't like this one, but because I really want to try the others. Now, if you live in Texas and are drinking some Texas whiskeys, you should probably get this whiskey, but understand it's not aged in Texas. This is MGP, so it's not going to have the Texas funk. If you're a rye guy, you should definitely try this whiskey. If you like innovative whiskeys, here you go. Try this one. But if you don't like that somewhat rubber flavor that rye sometimes have, you'll probably not like this one. And if you're not a fan of MGP, well, that's what this is. As for me, I'm going to enjoy this whiskey for the foreseeable future, and it just plain looks great on the shelf. Well, this is StabtheDragon signing off. And again, drink responsibly, avoid drunkenness, do not drink and drive. And if you're underage, you need to wait until you're old enough. Thanks. Have a good day.